Mitigated. 4. Personnel issues. Although it hadn't been implemented yet, Bud's plan was to coerce some of our female deputies to file sexual harassment claims against me and some of our deputies, raising the specter of having a serious hostile work environment. As a result, I called in the entire department and made every one of them sit through a short notice class on workplace violence, hostile work environments, and sexual harassment. I further explained to all department members that sexual harassment and harassment of any kind would not be tolerated. I then had one-on-one listening sessions with each member of the department. If Bud had been present in the building at the time, it never would have been possible. I made sure that all of the sexual harassment training was documented to further demonstrate that I had a strong commitment to maintaining a harassment-free workplace. All of the females in the department thanked me for holding the training, as did several of the male deputies. I felt we all had a good rapport after that, and everyone knew where I stood. Mitigated. 5. Property and evidence. The whole fiasco with moving department property and evidence would have been enough to send me to prison for over 8 lifetimes. If it hadn't been for Jeff's confession and Tanya's brilliance, there is no doubt that I would be looking at spending most of the rest of my life in prison. Being a former police officer in prison is not a good thing. Former cops don't have a long lifespan in prison. But in the end, we caught it, and all of the evidence was returned and chain of custody remained intact. At least, it was intact enough to fool a judge. Or so I hoped. Mitigated. There were all manner of other more minor violations Bud had in mind for me. From messing with staff payroll records to screwing up the maintenance records of department vehicles, Bud did his best to make me look like an incompetent jackass who needed to be fired. Chris, Tanya, and I tackled each of these allegations and problems one at a time. By the time Bud returned to work on January 3rd, we had the last loose ends tied up and all departmental records were back to normal, electronic signatures and all. Through it all, Bud's texting and emails to my wife showed brashness that I never would have imagined from him. I used to consider Bud one of my closest friends, but this whole diabolical plan of his was to steal my wife from me and send me to prison for a very, very long time. The fact that he would go to such lengths infuriated me, and the fact that Clarissa would willingly go along with it for an upgrade in personal status broke my heart. Bud Roberts was dangerous. Bud Roberts was a maniac. Bud Roberts needed to go. And upon reflection of all of those different factors, I came to one conclusion. Sean Patrick Quinn was going to run for sheriff of Mason County, and Bud Roberts was going to endorse me. He just didn't know it yet. Bud Roberts hadn't officially announced his intention to run for re-election as sheriff of Mason County, but everyone knew or assumed that he would. With the new year behind us, it was only a matter of time before Bud would start ramping up his efforts and formally announce. He already had plans to attend meetings of every local service organization and looking for other venues for speaking engagements to bolster his qualifications for getting re-elected. But thanks to Chris and Tanya, I now had 3 binders of hard copies of text messages, emails, and phone records that had all been printed out. Additionally, Tanya's efforts at digitally imprinting the IP addresses on all of the emails had worked. In fact, she went above and beyond to add additional storage capacity to Bud's email account and cell phone account to allow for the additional influx of emails that now appeared as if they were originally sent to Clarissa from his office account. Regular texts would have added little to the storage on the account. The extra space was needed for all of the explicit text pictures they sent one another. At least I could comfort myself by having proof that Clarissa was definitely not trading up when it came to genitalia. All of them now appeared to have been sent by Bud Roberts from his department-issued phone. It wasn't much of a concern as text messages don't appear on the county's phone statements from Red River Telecom. Tanya never bothered doing the same thing, however, with any phone calls made between Bud and Clarissa, as the actual phone calls would have been documented on actual paper phone bills and receipts. I now felt extremely confident that I had Bud Roberts and my soon-to-be ex-wife dead in my sights. All I really had to do was pull the trigger. I found out from Karen Landingham that Bud Roberts was scheduled to be speaking on the first Monday in February at the noon meeting of the local Red River Falls JCs. The JCs, or Junior Chamber of Commerce, were the second largest service organization in Red River Falls and comprised many of the up-and-coming professionals and young entrepreneurs in Red River Falls and the surrounding area. Meetings generally saw attendance of 200 members or more. The largest service organization was the local Lions Club, and you can bet that Bud Roberts would get himself scheduled on their speaking docket as well. The last weekend in January was approaching. I had been really loading up on the time I had been spending with the boys, including going out and spending each evening at the farm before returning to my zero-star accommodations at the Skyline Drive Motel. When I wasn't working or spending time with the boys, I was spending time with Shannon and Bridget, often meeting them for dinner at their house. It wasn't because I was afraid to be seen with them in public, but because I didn't want to take a chance of stirring anything up between Shannon and her father. I knew that if Shannon and I kept going with things the way they were, that Jack Sullivan was eventually going to want to have a talk with me. He was very old-fashioned that way, and I could tell that he was still possessed by an overwhelming need to protect his daughter and granddaughter. On the last Saturday of the month, I received a surprise invitation from Suzanne Sullivan to attend dinner with her, Jack, Shannon, and Bridget at their house that evening. I graciously accepted, even though I was tempted to decline, but I decided I wanted to forge ahead with this. I arrived at their home at around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Their home was located about 5 miles northwest of Red River Falls and sat on a hill on the family ranch overlooking an absolutely spectacular vista of the Red River Valley that literally took one's breath away. The house itself was a custom-built log cabin built to the size and specifications of the most modern McMansion you would see in any suburban subdivision. It was absolutely immaculate, and I could tell that Suzanne strived diligently to keep a beautiful home. Even though it was late January, the days were getting noticeably longer. Shannon and Bridget were already there, and Bridget gave me my customary bear hug upon arrival. Shannon and I simply embraced briefly, even though I could sense that both of us wanted to do more right on the spot. Such was the building chemistry between us. "Hello again, Patrick," Jack Sullivan said, extending his hand. His face had zero expression whatsoever. "Hello, Jack," I said cordially. "Thank you for inviting me to dinner." "Dinner can wait," Jack said. "Before you take off your coat, I wonder if you might walk out to the barn with me and give me a hand with a couple of chores." Suzanne and Shannon both exchanged, "oh shit," looks with each other. I decided that Jack would respect me more if I simply bucked up and faced him head-on. "Absolutely," I replied. "I'd be delighted to help out." A huge cattle barn was located about 50 yards away from the house and garage. Jack and I walked the distance without saying a word. There were about 50 head of pregnant cows in that barn, and I assisted Jack for about 30 minutes as we unloaded several large round bales of hay and placed them in steel hay feeders for them. The hungry heifers eagerly bit into their meal, and Jack and I just watched them silently. As we stood at the gate watching, Jack finally spoke his mind. "Suzanne and I lost 2 sons to miscarriages before Shannon was born. Even then, Shannon was a very difficult pregnancy for her. She spent most of the last 3 months on complete bed rest, and the last 3 weeks actually in the hospital so we wouldn't lose her or the baby. We walked slowly out of the barn and over to another large area where several massive breeding bulls were kept and were quietly munching through their own meal. Shannon being born was extremely hard on Suzanne's body. It just about tore her up. Her doctor told us that Shannon was the last child we would ever have. We got other opinions from other doctors, and they all pretty much said the same thing." He turned to look at me face to face. "Patrick, what I'm trying to tell you is that my daughter and my granddaughter mean more to me than anything else in my life. My wife and I struggled to bring a family into this world. I wasn't there to protect Shannon from that pig Billy when she needed me. I wasn't there to protect Bridget when she needed me, either." Suddenly, I could see tears in Jack's eyes. It was clear that his heart was breaking over his own perceived failures as a father and grandfather. "But," he went on, gritting his teeth, "I swear to God that I will do whatever it takes to protect them now in whatever way I can. So my question for you, Mr. Quinn, is what the hell are your intentions with my daughter and granddaughter? I know you're married and have kids of your own. So what the hell is going on between you and Shannon?" My heart was racing and I was genuinely scared of Jack. Not because he was a physical threat to me, but I was afraid of losing his friendship and his respect. For some reason, I really wanted both. I needed both. I saw him as an authority figure in my life, and I needed his respect and admiration. My wife Clarissa has been having an affair for over 2 years with my boss, the sheriff of Mason County, I said in a monotone voice. Jack's eyebrows arched and his eyes widened. Furthermore, My boss has been plotting my professional demise in an attempt to eventually remove me by force not only from my job, but from the lives of my children as well. It was all set up by Bud Roberts and my wife, Clarissa, before I even started working for the sheriff's department. I was just too dumb to figure it out. I just figured that all of the marital problems and emotional distance in my life with Clarissa would eventually work its way out, but it hasn't. It finally came to a head last November when I caught them together in my own home, sans clothing, or most of their clothes anyway. Bud and I were supposed to be at a law enforcement conference in Minneapolis for 2 weeks, but he showed up late and left early so he could spend a few extra days with my wife. Jack looked away from me, almost in shame, but I continued on. I have absolutely no idea what my future holds, Jack. Bud Roberts tried to orchestrate numerous crimes and charges to have me dismissed from the department at some point. The only 2 things I know for sure are that I'm going to get divorced from my wife. I've already spoken to Father Shane about it, and he even agrees that the church will most likely grant me an annulment of my marriage. The only other thing that I'm sure of is that I am hopelessly in love with Shannon and Bridget, and if they will have me as a husband and father, I promise you in God above that I will love them, cherish them, and protect them for the rest of my life. After several moments of silence, Jack finally looked me in the eye once again. I'm so sorry, Patrick. I had no idea. I can't even imagine what it must be like to have gone through what you did to save that little girl only to have your family abandon you. I want you to know something, Jack. When all of this is over with and Clarissa and I are divorced, I have absolutely every intention of asking Shannon to marry me. Will you allow that, Jack? Will you be my father-in-law and allow me the honor of taking your daughter's hand in marriage? The stoic look on Jack's face softened and genuine warmth appeared in his eyes. He stood up straight, his chest swelled with pride, and he extended his hand. I took it eagerly. Patrick, it would be an honor, to have you as a member of the family. When the time comes, I can't think of a better son-in-law to have. We embraced warmly, and I could literally feel his love and respect flow from his body into mine. We walked back up to the house for dinner and found Shannon and Suzanne in the huge kitchen, while Bridget watched cartoons on the massive TV in the family room. I could see both ladies exhale in relief, as it was obvious that Jack was in a much more jovial mood than he had been before our chat. "Let's eat," he bellowed, and both women exchanged smiles and began bringing food to the table. As she walked by me, Shannon touched me lightly on the shoulder and whispered in my ear, "What the hell was that all about?" "Later," I said. "Much, much later." Shannon gave me a wry smile and returned to the kitchen to bring out more food. The meal was amazing, the conversation lively, and the family companionship warm and comforting. As we sat there eating dessert afterwards, I couldn't control myself anymore and reached over to Shannon and took her hand in mine. Suzanne stole a quick glance towards Jack, who simply returned it with a wink and a smile. We spent the rest of the afternoon and evening in quiet company, enjoying a beautiful fire in the massive stone fireplace in the family room, and watched The Wizard of Oz and The Sound of Music, both favorites of Shannon and Bridget. Bridget regaled us all as she sang along with every tune and knew them all by heart. I sat on the love seat with Shannon, my arm draped around her. With the ice now broken, there didn't seem to be a need for any more pretenses. Based on his reaction, Jack obviously didn't think so either. I finally retired from their wonderful home and hospitality around 10 p.m. I exchanged warm hugs with both Jack and Suzanne and asked Shannon to walk me to my truck. In the soft moonlight of a cold but calm January night, I kissed Shannon goodnight. I know she was dying to know what Jack and I had talked, and again I told her that all would be revealed in good time. Before I left that night, there was one final thing I needed to get off my chest. I love you, Shannon Elizabeth Sullivan. I love you with all of my heart, and I will love you for the rest of your life. She gasped, and the tears started flowing. I love you too, Sean Patrick Quinn. So very, very much. We hugged for what seemed like forever, but when it was over, seemed so very brief. I watched her in my rearview mirror as she stood in the driveway watching me until I was out of sight. As I drove back to the motel, I punched in the numbers on my phone and made a call. My boys were at my sister Beth's house for the weekend playing with their cousins, which meant that I knew full well where Clarissa and Bud Roberts were at. I had made it clear to Clarissa that I had no intention of coming anywhere near the farm this weekend, and Bud had made it clear to everyone that he would be out of town this weekend on county business. Apparently, that county business would include sticking around my wife. After the fourth ring, Bud Roberts finally answered. "I'm busy," he said. "Yeah, well, you don't sound out of breath right now, so I can assume that you're done screwing my soon-to-be ex-wife for a little while. So, you're not that busy that you can't talk for a bit. Why do you insist on pissing me off, Patrick?" he sighed. "Just shut up and listen, Bud. Since I already know where you're at and what you're doing, there isn't any point in pretending. I want you and Clarissa to know it is over. I'm done playing this game. I've resigned myself to the fact that whatever is going to happen is going to happen. All I'm asking for is a chance to sit down with you and Clarissa and work out the details. I should think that we can all be civil long enough to do that. Don't you think? Are you drunk or something, Patrick? Because it almost sounds like you're attempting to be reasonable for a change," Bud said with a sarcastic laugh. "I'm dead serious, Bud. All I'm asking for is a chance to work out a fair arrangement between all of us. As long as you don't try and screw me over with my job, I'll concede that my marriage to Clarissa is over with. I'm doing this out of respect for Clarissa and our boys. When do you want to do this? Let's do it tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock, out at the farm. The boys won't be back from my sister's place until supper time. That should give us plenty of time to talk." "Okay, Patrick. Fair enough. I'll see you then. Be sure to give Clarissa a hug and a squeeze for me," I said with a grin. "I'll do what?" Bud said, confused. I ended the call before he got an answer. So the big meeting with Clarissa and Bud was set. Everything was falling into place. But there was one more player to invite to the game to make it all complete. I thumbed another number into the phone and punched send. The recipient of my call was none too happy. I arrived out at the farm precisely at 2 o'clock. My mystery guest had not arrived at this point, but I was absolutely certain that he would do whatever he could to make an appearance. His life, as he knew it, and his career depended on it. I let myself into the house. After all, it was still my house. And if everything went according to plan, it would still be my house for many years to come. Bud Roberts and Clarissa were standing in the living room waiting for me. Bud extended his hand to me, and I mustered up the will to shake it. "Patrick, glad you could make it. I think I speak for both Clarissa and I when I say that we're both going to be happy to put this all behind us and move forward. Can I get you something to drink?" He and Clarissa were each nursing a glass of wine, no doubt to help take the edge off what we were all expecting to be a tense and unpleasant meeting. My fake chipper attitude as I walked in seemed to help take the edge off a little more. "Sure, Bud." Grab me a tumbler from the cupboard next to the microwave along with some ice. Then, look in the bottom of the pantry all the way in the back behind the cleaning supplies. You should see 2 large bottles of vinegar near the back. Slide those apart and grab the bottle of whiskey behind there. Okay, Bud said sheepishly as he heeded my complex request. I gave Clarissa a completely fabricated smile, and she returned one equally as fake. We both stood there in silence as Bud continued to fumble around looking for the bottle of whiskey. I was pretty sure I would know when he found it. "Holy shit, Patrick." "Yep, he found it. Is this what I think it is?" "Yes, it is indeed, Bud. Johnny Walker Blue. I've looked for this in every liquor store in Red River Falls and can never find it." "Ah, yes. It was a gift from an old friend. The truth is it was a gift from Caroline and Martin. They had sent it to me, and it arrived at the farm shortly after I had met them in Minneapolis. I didn't want to keep it at my shitty motel and decided to hide it in the pantry. Why keep it with the cleaning supplies?" Bud asked. "Simple, Bud. That way I knew Clarissa would never find it." I couldn't help but chuckle. Even Bud cracked a brief smile, but it disappeared quickly as he saw Clarissa did not appreciate my humor. But then again, the bitch never has. "Oh, come on, Clarissa. Even you have to admit that you're not much for house cleaning. Why else do you think we pay Mary Maids $500 to come out here and clean once a month?" If you don't mind, Patrick, I wouldn't mind a taste of that JWB myself," Bud said, fishing for an invitation. "Oh, mercy no, Bud. You can have my wife, but you can't have my Johnny Walker Blue," I said, genuinely laughing. For some reason, it felt good to be able to actually laugh in Clarissa and Bud's presence, even though both of them thought it was because I was accepting my place as the loser in all of this. But the truth was the joke was on them. Soon another guest of this party would be here, and the punchline would really be delivered. I had brought a briefcase with me that I set on the coffee table. I sat down in my old favorite chair and proceeded to pour myself a generous tumbler of the Johnny Walker Blue as Bud watched with envy. I took a long pull from my glass and savored the aged, smooth, smoky flavor. Goddamn, that is some good scotch. I popped open the briefcase and removed 2 large 3-ring binders full of information. What is all of this? Bud asked. We'll get to that in a little bit, I said as I glanced towards the window. My guest should be arriving any moment. Well, Bud started, as he and Clarissa sat down on the sofa. You were the one who wanted to meet with us. What did you want to talk about? I set my tumbler of scotch on the coffee table. Well, Bud and Clarissa, I guess it is obvious that the two of you intend to be together, so I thought it was only fitting to have a get-together to symbolize that. But first, Bud, I want to ask you one question. Okay, Patrick, what is it? Do you love Clarissa? Bud looked at Clarissa and then back at me. Of course I do, Patrick. That's what this is all about. Well, then, let me ask you another question. What do you love about her? What is the point of this, Patrick? Simple, Bud. You have been cheating on your wife with my wife. You say that you love her. I want to know what you love about her and why. Bud stared at me dumbfounded. I already knew the answer. Bud, although he says he loves Clarissa, simply wanted her for a trophy wife. He wanted to trade Margaline for a younger model, perhaps one more daring and uninhibited. And he also wanted to prove his manhood by taking the woman he wanted from another man. I love her because she's beautiful, and she makes me happy, Patrick. Okay, I said, nodding. That's a start. Physical attraction is definitely important. But I'm talking about a few layers deeper, the person inside. What do you love about her? Bud replied, I think I see where you're going with this. You came all the way out here not to be reasonable, but to try and prove to Clarissa that you love her more than I do, and hoping that hearing your undying love will make her run back to you. Is that it? A big no. Clarissa and I are done for. If we establish nothing else today, we will definitely establish that. I guess the point is, how well do you really know her? Jesus, Pat, I think I know her pretty well. We've all known each other for over 12 years now. Ever since you started at the police department. What's her favorite color? What? I didn't stutter, Bud. I asked you a simple question. What is Clarissa's favorite color? Bud just stared at me like a mime. It's yellow, Bud. Clarissa's favorite color is yellow because she still associates it with the color of the sun, and because her bedroom growing up was highlighted with yellow trim, bed sheets, curtains, and a yellow floor rug. Yellow makes her happy, Bud. Bud stood up and walked behind the sofa, shaking his head. Do you know what Clarissa's favorite song is? Bud stood there, looked at Clarissa and then back at me. It is Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve. It was a song she listened to over and over again after her parents got divorced when she was in high school. I decided to keep pressing ahead with my questions. Do you know what toy Clarissa always wanted for Christmas, but never got until I gave her one a few years ago as a sort of gag gift? It was an Easy Bake Oven. Do you want to know what her recurring nightmare was as a little girl growing up? Getting eaten alive by a Venus flytrap after her second-grade teacher brought one to school and fed it bugs and raw hamburger. Do you know what Clarissa's most favorite musical group of all time is? Simple. It's the Dave Matthews Band. I walked over to Bud so I could face him eye to eye. I guess what I'm saying is, Bud, how well do you really know my wife? Because I could go on and on and on with this all day and show you how well I know her, the real Clarissa. The Clarissa that nobody ever gets to see in public. I know for a fact that, for some strange reason, when she was little she wanted to be a bulldozer operator when she grew up because that is what her dad did for a living. I know the real Clarissa, Bud. I loved the real Clarissa for the 12 years we were married and the nearly 15 years we have been together. I looked over at Clarissa. She sat on the couch looking away from both Bud and me. There were tears in her eyes, and the first several had already streaked down her cheek. Are you happy now, Patrick? Does it make you feel like a man to make Clarissa cry? No, having the love of my wife is what made me feel like a man. This whole scenario gives me no pride or pleasure, Bud. You wanted this meeting, damn it. What did you really come here for today, Patrick? To prove a point. And that is? To prove that you really don't love Clarissa. To To get Clarissa to see what she has thrown away for the illusion of some power, wanting to be the wife of a big fish in a little pond. I wanted her to see that you don't know the first damn thing about her, that you only wanted her because she already belonged to someone else, and that you are only in this because it makes you feel like a man to take what belonged to someone else. And finally, I wanted this meeting to put a stop to it all. You jackass, Bud retorted. I thought you just said a little while ago that you were done with Clarissa. You're so screwed up you're talking circles around yourself. You're right. I did say exactly that, and I meant every word of it. But I told you and Clarissa several months ago that I was going to put a stop to your affair, somehow, someway. And that happens today. As a matter of fact, I said, as my mystery guest's vehicle pulled into the driveway, that affair ends right about now. I walked over to the front door as my mystery guest hastily jogged up the front steps, and I flung the door open wide to greet him with enthusiasm. Look, everybody, I crowed. If it isn't our old friend, the Mason County attorney, Mr. Marion Lawson. What the hell is he doing here? Bud asked. I was about to ask you the same thing, Lawson responded. You never said anything about Bud Roberts being here. Please, please, everyone sit down. All will be revealed, I assure you. Say, Marion, Bud volunteered to play bartender for us this afternoon. Maybe you'd like a little something to take the edge off? Quit screwing around, Pat. You wanted me here for some goddamn reason. Hurry up and get on with it. I've got better things to do with my time than drive out to the sticks and listen to your bullshit. Wow, you're not a very gracious guest, Marion. Is it all right if I call you Marion? Lawson just rolled his eyes. Anyway, unlike Bud, I was actually going to offer you a sniff of my Johnny Walker Blue, seeing as how you and I are probably going to be working together so closely in the future. What the hell are you babbling about? Do you have any idea what this is all about? All right, I conceded. Social hour is over with. We'll get down to business. Have a seat. I grabbed the binders and handed one binder each to both Bud and Marion. Gentlemen, what you hold in your hands are nothing less than dynamite, and each of you has played a role in lighting the fuse. The binders you see are filled with copies of thousands of emails, text messages, and other correspondence between my soon-to-be ex-wife and Sheriff William Roberts. These text messages and emails detail very well the torrid affair that has been taking place between my wife, Clarissa, and the good sheriff over the last 2 years. Bud's face turned beet red, and he looked like he was about to have a stroke. Marion was incredulous. So, what's the big deal, Quinn? Lawson asked. Why should I give a shit about any of this? The big deal, Marion, is that these text messages and emails detail numerous plots and allegations against me that were perpetrated by Sheriff Bud Roberts in an effort to destroy my career, incarcerate me for years to come, and cost me my marriage and my relationship with my 2 sons. These text messages and emails detail plans to have me investigated and charged with financial crimes, false arrests and imprisonments, embezzlement, falsifying records, and over 80 counts of tampering with witnesses and evidence. If Bud Roberts had gotten his way, he would have sent me to prison for the rest of my life. This is bullshit, Patrick, Bud shouted as he stood. You are a stupid idiot. You overplayed your hand. I have no idea how you got all of these emails and text messages, but they are all bullshit. They'll never stand up in court. Clarissa and I will charge you with invasion of privacy and computer hacking and whatever other charges I can drum up. All of this will go away. All of it. Judge Prohaski will bury this evidence with a shovel and then bury the shovel. You stole personal information and property from Clarissa and I. Marion Lawson was nodding along with everything Bud was saying. He's right. You'll have to prove how you got that information, and I guarantee it will get suppressed immediately if it was obtained without a warrant. Any good lawyer could have that case dismissed before the ink on the subpoena was even dry. But they didn't know the full story yet. The only stupid idiot, I calmly replied, is you two, Bud and Marion. Have a seat. Take a closer look at those emails and text messages. Bud eyeballed me as he slowly returned to his seat. He picked up the binder again and leafed through the emails and texts. He surely recognized them, but there was one big piece of information he hadn't discovered yet. Bud, do you know what an IP address is? Of course, dumbass. I know exactly what an IP address is. Good. Very good. then you should know that your Internet Protocol address is assigned to every piece of equipment assigned to any network, no matter whether it is public or private. Basically, any computer, smartphone, laptop, tablet, or any other device capable of connecting to the internet has an IP address. Get to the point, Patrick. You're way beyond pissing me off now. Here, bud, take a look at this. I handed him a piece of paper. This is an inter-office email memo that you shared with all of us at the Sheriff's Department, as well as other city and county offices. Do you remember sending that out? Yes, Patrick. I remember quite well. What is your point? Take a look at the bottom of that email. You will agree with me that you sent that email from your county-provided computer in your own office at the Sheriff's Department, correct? Bud nodded his agreement, hatred still burning in his eyes. Excellent. Now, compare the IP address at the bottom of that email with the IP address located at the bottom of the emails you sent back and forth to Clarissa over the last 2 years. Bud begrudgingly did as I asked. As he compared one of the emails to Clarissa with the inter-office memo, his eyes widened and his face paled. Frantically, he began flipping through the rest of the binder. Each of the emails in the binder contained the same IP address as the inter-office memo. Patrick, goddamn you. What the hell did you do? How the hell did you do this? Answer me. God damn it. How the hell did you do this? How did he do what? How did he do what? Marion Lawson begged. He screwed me, Marion. He screwed me, that's what. He made it look like all of these emails were sent from my office computer. I never sent one goddamn thing to Clarissa from my office. Bud was now actively hyperventilating. It was a beautiful sight. Marion Lawson's mouth just opened in shock and awe. Oh, but there's more. There's so much more, I said, giddily. Take a look at the transcripts of all your text messages. Check out the number that they were all sent from. Bud looked closer and recognized the number as being from his work-provided Galaxy smartphone. He just hung his head and was speechless. There's no way this can be real. There's no way. Oh, but it is, Bud. Take a look at the mail feature on your smartphone. Take a look at your text registry. You will find every single email that I printed and placed in this binder in your email sent file also. You will find every single text message to Clarissa is also in your work phone's text app as well. Go ahead. Check it out. Sheepishly, Bud took out his phone and looked. He let out an incredulous grunt of bemused irony as he verified that everything I said was true. Marion Lawson said, Jesus, I thought you had this whole situation under control, Bud. You assured me that this whole thing was under control, you jackass. It was under control, damn it. Apparently not, Bud. Look at you. Quinn's got you by the short and curlies, and there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it. He's not the only one, Marion, I said sternly. Go ahead. Check out some of the text messages towards the back of your binder. Marion started to look, but then stopped as I continued. There are over 200 text messages back and forth between you, Bud Roberts and Clarissa, detailing your plans and highlights of your sexual escapades. You little scumsucker, Lawson breathed. There may not be any material in there, Marion, for me to make a criminal case against you like I can, Bud Roberts. But there is enough fodder in there to keep the gossip and rumor mills in the upper Midwest and Plains going for years to come. You will also likely face a lot of embarrassment and possible punishment from the county supervisors for using your work phone and computer to carry on a sexual relationship with Sheriff Bud Roberts and the wife of his chief deputy all behind my back. And your name will be forever linked with the infamous felon named Bud Roberts for the rest of your life. Your career as you know it will be over. You will surely be disbarred. You will never practice law in this state or any other state ever again. You will be a social and professional pariah wherever you go. Lawson turned his head and looked away. But you're not as bad off as Bud over here. I have enough material to send him and my soon-to-be ex-wife to prison for a very, very long time. Hell, Clarissa will be a grandmother by the time she gets out of prison. Clarissa gasped when I said that. Finally, Bud conceded. All right, Patrick, what is it that you want? I stood and addressed both Bud and Clarissa. The first thing that I want is what I already told you I wanted. Actually, it isn't even a want. It is what is most definitely going to happen. You and Clarissa are done. Your affair is over with. There will absolutely be no more contact between the two of you. If I even catch a whiff of any bullshit going on between you two, I will bring the hammer down on you with the fury of God's own thunder. You will both go to jail. You will both do some serious and hard time. Do you understand me? And what if I refuse? How are you going to stop me? What do you think you have to keep me from retaliating? I may not be ready to accept defeat just yet, Patrick. I can't tell you how much it gives me pleasure to be able to repeat the same phrase you said to me a few months ago, bud. But let's just agree that whatever I decide to do is inevitable. The look on Bud's face as I regurgitated his own words was priceless. And you are defeated, Bud. I'm not the only one who has these binders. I'm not the only one who has access to all of this information. We both know I'm no genius. I could never have done all this on my own. There are a number of people who have all this information, too. Good people. People I can trust. I'm sure you're not going to tell me, but I'll take a chance anyway, Bud half-heartedly chuckled. Who? I won't tell you exactly, but I'll give you a hint. Think about someone you may know who is connected rather intimately with someone locally in the computer business. I could see the wheels turning inside Bud's head. After a few moments, the light bulb turned on. Chris Hayes, he seethed. Oh, my God, Patrick. Chris Hayes' dumb pig of a girlfriend? You're really going to tie your horse to that druggy bitch's wagon? She is anything but a dumb bitch, Bud. She dropped out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology because she was bored. She's so brilliant they couldn't teach her anything anymore. I can see a bright future for her on the side as a consultant with the sheriff's department. What sheriff in his right mind would hire that pothead as a consultant? I paused for dramatic effect. I would. Are you out of your mind? Nope, I'm not, Bud. That brings me to the second condition of my terms. We already discussed the first term that you and Clarissa are to end your affair. The second term is this. You are going to announce Monday at the JC's meeting that you have decided not to run for re-election as Mason County Sheriff. Additionally, at a time of my choosing, you are going to announce that you have spoken with me and have talked me into running for sheriff and that I have your full support and endorsement. Clarissa, who had been softly crying on her end of the sofa, suddenly perked up when she heard that I intended to become sheriff. What an opportunistic bitch. And along with your endorsement, I continued. I will also be expecting the full and enthusiastic endorsement of our good county attorney. Lawson just shook his head and rolled his eyes, not because he didn't think I'd make a good sheriff, but because he knew that there was no way out of this. I held Bud's literal fate in my hands, but I also held the reputation of Marion Lawson in my hands, which was manifest with his professional fate as well. I also had another major piece of information on Marion that I wasn't ready to reveal just yet. I'll play that card when the time comes. And if I refuse? Bud asked. It was pointless. He already knew the damned answer. Then I turned over every last shred of evidence to the State Bureau of Criminal Investigation. A massive investigation will take place. Dozens, if not hundreds of criminals will be released because of your tampering with evidence bullshit. You will be brought up on a list of charges as long as my arm, and you will be responsible for putting some really bad people, including a few murderers, back on the streets of our community. Furthermore, you will be tried and convicted and spend the bulk of the rest of your life in a men's penitentiary where the kind of sex you want ain't the kind of sex you're gonna get. And the kind of sex you get sure as hell ain't the kind of sex you want. Either way, Bud, you don't come out of this a winner. Just do it, Bud, Lawson groaned. Stick a fork in yourself. You're done. And so am I if we don't do what he wants. Just finish your term. Step down and slip quietly back into the woodwork and into a long retirement. I'll do whatever you say, Patrick. But why not let Clarissa and I just be together? You already said that you plan on divorcing her, anyway. I swear to God I'll do whatever you want me to do. Say whatever you want me to say, Bud pleaded. Please don't do. Why the hell not? You've got me and Lawson by the balls. You've got Clarissa over a barrel, too, for conspiracy. Why not just quit while you're ahead? Jesus, you are a weasel. You and Clarissa aren't going to be together, Bud, because I said you're not. If I even catch so much as a mouse fart of a whisper from you in her direction, I will throw the book at you. I am spiteful enough and vindictive enough over this whole situation that I've had to endure for the last 2 years that I won't even give you an inch. Bud, do you understand me? I wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire, Bud. The only thing I'll bring to your funeral won't be flowers, just spit. In other words, I'm not going to let you and Clarissa be together just because I feel like being an a-hole and there isn't a goddamn thing you can do about it. Clear enough for ya, Bud? Bud stood slowly, slightly hunched. He was no longer the picture of the virile, cowboy, frontier lawman that he was when I arrived earlier this afternoon. He stood and made his way to the front door, paused and said, "You win, Patrick. You win. I'm going home to my wife. I'm so sorry, Clarissa. I'm so sorry." Then he exited my house for the last time, no longer my wife's lover and beginning his days as a lame duck sheriff. All Clarissa could do was just stand there in total shock, one hand on her mouth trying to stifle a fit of sobbing, and another hand on her stomach trying to keep the nausea at bay. She hadn't said a word in 20 minutes, too dumbfounded to even organize a thought. Marion Lawson grabbed his coat and headed for the door himself. As he started to open the door, he paused as a thought came to him. "You know, Quinn, the longer you let this go without arresting anyone in this whole mess just makes you look more complicit in it as well. Have you thought about that? What's to stop me from bringing charges against you in the future for squashing all of this? I mean, sure, Bud Roberts would hang most definitely, but you would have a lot to lose too," he said with a slight smirk. My mood and demeanor changed instantly. It was time to throw down my ace. "Let me explain something to you, Marion. I'm going to be running for sheriff. I'm going to win the election this November. And when I become sheriff of Mason County, the county attorney can either be a friend or a foe. I can't stop you from choosing to become an enemy of mine, but if you do, you should be aware that I now have some key and often underestimated allies. You saw what I did with Bud Roberts today. So let me ask you a question, Marion. Just exactly how old are some of those girls in the 15 pictures and 5 video clips you have stashed in that encrypted file on the C drive of your home computer?" "Oh my God," Marion whispered as he turned ghost white. "When you give me your public endorsement for sheriff, Marion, I think a very nice write-up in the op-ed section of the Red River Falls Sunday paper would be just fine," I said with a game show host smile. Marion didn't say another word, just nodded and made a beeline for his Lexus. Turning to my stunned future ex-wife, I exclaimed, "Well, that went well. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to head upstairs and take a shit in my own toilet for a change." My wife hadn't spoken more than a sentence since I arrived at the house. I left her to contemplate her own future in deafening silence. To say that things changed in my life would be the grossest understatement of the year. True to his word, Bud Roberts made his announcement the following morning at the JC's meeting that he would not be seeking re-election as Mason County Sheriff. Instead, he regaled the attendees at the luncheon with numerous stories and anecdotes from his years in law enforcement. It was a canned speech that he had delivered numerous times before and was very polished at it. But if there is one thing that Bud Roberts is good at, it is making a speech. And so the crowd ate it up. Reporters from the local TV and radio stations, as well as the newspaper, were on hand expecting an altogether different announcement. But the one they got was still pretty big news, and I'm sure the editors were happy. I had sent Bud and Marion Lawson both text messages that morning stating that I felt it best to wait a week or so before announcing my candidacy. It would also give me some time to see what other candidates might appear out of the woodwork and gave me some time to size up the competition. Several people in the community hinted at the possibility of running for the soon-to-be vacant sheriff's position. Tom Wellington was a local small businessman who was part of the Citizens and Law Enforcement Coalition. He was a civilian, however, and would have to take a special course in law enforcement within 6 months of being elected in order to stay on as sheriff. He wrote and submitted a lot of editorials to the paper and usually wrote about local politics and his thoughts on the matter. I didn't really see him as much of a challenge. Another person of interest was Amy Van Deeken, who was a deputy on the department. She felt it was time for a woman to have a shot at becoming the top law enforcement officer in the county. To be honest, I really like Amy. She is a good deputy, but only has about 5 years of experience. But she is regarded as an up-and-comer, has a good head on her shoulders, and has some ideas that are definitely worth consideration. In truth, she might actually have made a good candidate. The only other serious threat, of course, came from Pete Sturgeon at the Red River Falls Police Department. I knew Pete would have it out for me if he became sheriff, and I could probably kiss my position as captain and chief deputy goodbye if he got elected. But with all the notoriety and goodwill I had achieved from the public after dealing with Bridget's kidnapping and the hostage situation with Amber Rigby, I knew that I would pretty much blow Pete Sturgeon out of the water. Apparently, Pete knew it, too. I announced my candidacy for sheriff at a small press conference 1 week later. Shortly afterward, both Pete Sturgeon and Amy Van Deeken announced that they would no longer be seeking election as Mason County Sheriff. The upside to that was that it gave me the chance to ask Amy Van Deeken to be a part of my campaign and learn the ins and outs of running for office. Even though the move potentially set me up for a strong challenge from Amy in a future election, Amy eagerly accepted and proved to be one of the smartest moves I would make in the campaign. So that left just me and Tom Wellington as the only remaining candidates for sheriff. Bud Roberts and Marion Lawson both reaffirmed their commitment to give me a glowing endorsement. But then again, what else were they gonna do? I had Bud Roberts dead to rights for a million things, and I had Marion Lawson by the balls on a potential case. Out of everything that Tanya had done for me over the last couple of months, the Marion Lawson setup was the piece de resistance, a total masterpiece. Tanya, true to her abilities, was able to scan Marion's home computer by retracing an email that had been sent to me on a case we were both involved with that was coming up for trial. The email had been sent from his home. It was nothing short of a gift from God that Tanya was able to find the hidden encrypted file on Marion's hard drive. Doubtful that Marion's wife, Stacy, ever used his home computer. It was one thing to know that the spicy pics and video clips were on his computer, but what Tanya did was to take things a step further. All Marion would have had to do was destroy the computer, and the evidence disappeared. Tanya took the photos and video clips and was able to embed them in pictures of Marion Lawson and his family. Someone viewing the pics would never know they were there. But the FBI knows how to look for those things, if they were given a tip or probable cause. Tanya then posted those pictures in an online photo album on Lawson's Facebook page, as well as a Microsoft Cloud account that was set up under his name, but one he didn't have access to. It was all routed to look like it was set up from his home computer. To a regular viewer, it was just family pictures. To a forensic computer analyst, it was pictures and video clips that were illegal and depicted people engaged in all manner of sexual acts. If any of it was discovered, Lawson could reasonably expect to spend 10 to 20 years in a federal prison. So all I could do was stand back, yet again, and admire Tanya's handiwork. That woman was something else. If all she wanted for recompense was a threesome with me and Chris Hayes, I might just have to sacrifice myself and give in, because that's just the kind of guy I am. I put the needs of others before my own. In all seriousness, though, the biggest changes in my life occurred at home. I never once promised Clarissa that I would take her back, never even hinted at the possibility that we would try and stay together. With her dream of becoming the next Mrs. William Bud Roberts now lying in ruin, Clarissa put all of her efforts into being the best Mrs. Sean Patrick Quinn that she possibly could. She literally became the epitome of a Stepford wife, even though I never asked her to. Our house became spotless. A big breakfast was always ready in the morning, and a family meal was always ready to eat every night at precisely 6 o'clock. Needless to say, I had immediately moved all of my stuff out of the Skyline Drive motel and back out to the farm. I didn't move back into the master bedroom, however, and opted to sleep at night in the guest bedroom. I did make it a point to buy a completely new set of sheets, pillows, mattress, and box spring. To the boys, the transition to me being back at home was a very welcome one, and they didn't seem to notice or care that I wasn't sleeping in the same room as their mother. Clarissa and I spoke very little, but we were extremely cordial with one another. I never once raised my voice to her, gave her an overt or implied threat, and never even came close to raising my hand against her. We exchanged idle chit-chat, but very little more. With the campaign in full swing throughout the rest of the spring and into the summer, I was kept very busy with both work and the campaign. Even Shannon, Bridget, Jack, and Suzanne all pitched in and helped out whenever they could. True to their word, both Bud Roberts and Marion Lawson gave me glowing endorsements in the local paper and in TV and radio interviews. The editorial board of the newspaper gave me their endorsement over Tom Wellington, and, soon, more and more endorsements from the local movers and shakers jumped on the Sheriff Pat Quinn bandwagon. I still made time to see Shannon whenever I could. Oftentimes, it was on a Friday or Saturday evening, and I gave Clarissa the excuse that I had campaign business to take care of. Much of the time I did. In fact, have campaign events or fundraisers to attend, and would sneak off to see Shannon and Bridget afterwards. Shannon understood the need for discretion and never once complained about it. There just seemed to be an understanding between us that our lives' paths were both headed in the same direction, and there never seemed to be any doubt in Shannon's mind about that. Our lovemaking sessions were still just as incredible and fulfilling as that first one on her living room sofa. The emotional and physical chemistry were perfect, and I grew to need her just as much as I needed air to breathe. The closer the election neared, Clarissa actually started attending some of the fundraisers and events. She didn't try to take a lead role or become overly involved, but she did make sure that everyone knew that she was my wife, as if to make sure everyone knew that she would soon be the wife of the Mason County Sheriff. A small part of her was still deluded enough to think that her dream of being the wife of someone important could still come true. It happened late one Saturday night in September. My boys were away for the weekend at my sister Beth's to spend time with their cousins. I had gotten home late that night after another campaign event. Shannon had to work an overnight shift at the request of a coworker who needed some sudden time off. It was almost 11 o'clock, and I had assumed that Clarissa had just gone to bed as usual. So, I jumped in the shower and then headed straight to bed. I was nearly asleep when I heard the floorboards outside the guest bedroom door creak and alerted me to someone's presence. The door slowly opened and Clarissa's figure was backlit in the doorway from the light of the master bedroom. She wore a thin, see-through nightgown, and I could tell she wasn't wearing any panties. To any normal man, she would have been an amazing sight to see creeping into their bedroom late at night. To me, she was still Bud Roberts' bitch. "Patrick," she whispered, "are you still awake?" "Yes, unfortunately," I groaned, rolling over and away from her. "Whatever it is that you want, can it wait until morning?" "I want to talk to you, Patrick. I need to talk about us." "You seriously want to have a heart-to-heart talk now? I just got home, showered, and into bed. I am tired, Clarissa. Let's just do this in the morning." She sat down on the bed and put her hand on my right arm. "I want you to come to bed with me, Patrick. It has been a long time now. Everything is in the past now. I'm ready to look forward to our future, Patrick. And I want to start that future with you making love to me." "I can't." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I can't." "You can't what? Make love to me? Are you sick or something? Are you not feeling well, or just too tired?" Frustrated and exhausted, I rolled over and let out a big sigh. "I mean, Clarissa, that I can't make love to you, because in order to make love to someone, you actually have to love that someone. I don't love you anymore, Clarissa. All that went away when I found out that you were screwing Bud Roberts. I know you still love me, Patrick. I know that somewhere deep down inside, you still love me. I'm the mother of your 2 children. That has to count for something. Just come to bed with me. I'll show you." It was no use. I could tell she was still deluded and still in the fog that the entire world revolved around her. For the past nearly 7 months since I torpedoed her and Bud Roberts' affair, she has seemed to take the relative calm and cooperation around the house as me wanting to eventually work things out with her. She actually thought that she could try and save our marriage, and yet, she thought I was the one who would have to come to her to fix it. The only way to get this through her head was to be an a-hole about it. I have absolutely no interest whatsoever in going to bed with you, Clarissa. I have absolutely no sexual interest in you anymore, and I have absolutely no desire to stick my tool somewhere that Bud Roberts has been sticking his. You willingly gave yourself to Bud Roberts, and I relinquish any claim on it from here on out. Please, Patrick, I'm fighting for our family here. I wish that you would fight for your family, too. I want things to be the way they were. I want back the man that I fell in love with. Well, according to you and Bud, the 2 of you fell in love with each other. And, for your information, I fought like hell to make things better between us for over 2 years while you were out screwing Bud Roberts behind my back, letting him 304 you out to his friends. And then, a year ago when I got shot, where the hell were you then? What exactly were you doing the day I almost got killed? Huh. I know I wasn't there for you right away, Patrick, but I'm trying to make an effort. Can't you see that? Look what I've done for you the past few months. I've done everything you asked me to. I've tried to be a good wife and mother. Doesn't that count? I've even been using my medication for my low testosterone problem to make myself desire you more. Doesn't that count? Why did it take Bud Roberts for you to finally come around with that? Why wasn't I good enough for you to make you want to do that for me? Me, the father of your children? Patrick, none of that matters. What matters is that I'm here right now. What matters is that I want to fix our marriage, move on with our lives, and forget everything that happened over the last couple of years. We can fix this, Patrick. I know we can. I'm just asking you to give me a chance. We can't. There is no fixing this. You just want this to go away because that will make you feel better. You have hurt me. You have humiliated me. You have given away what was rightfully mine to another man, and you did it for 2 years. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? Any idea at all? Just give me a chance, Patrick. Come to bed with me. I promise you I can make you forget about everything that happened, Patrick. I will give my body completely to you, Patrick. I will make absolutely every single one of your fantasies come true. I'm ready to do that now, Patrick. I wasn't before, but I am now. Just give me a chance. Please. I stood there staring at her form in that sheer nightgown. My God, but she was beautiful. I had to give her that. She wanted to have sex, something I literally had to damn near get down on my hands and knees and beg for over the last 2 years plus. And now, when I was planning to divorce her after the election and with her future life with Bud Roberts completely torn to shreds, now she finally desired me and wanted me sexually. My breathing quickened and my pulse began to race as I suddenly became filled with a building rage. A rage that I had to take out on someone or something. And the only thing I could do was to take it out on Clarissa. I wanted her to hurt. I wanted her to feel despair. I wanted her to feel used and cheated. I wanted her to feel the physical pain that I had to endure when I was shot and the emotional pain I had to endure when she abandoned me. But most of all, I wanted to humiliate her and shame her the way she had done to me. I wanted to take her natural beauty and destroy it. Clarissa, I asked deviously, let me ask you a question, and I demand your complete honesty. I started to slowly and menacingly walk towards her. In all of the times that you had sex with Bud or any of his friends, did any of them have your bum? What? You heard me. In all the times you had sex with Bud Roberts or any of his friends or acquaintances, did any of them screw you from behind? God, no. You know I would never do that. I'd never let anyone do that. That's disgusting. Good, I said. That means you're still a virgin back there. If you want any hope whatsoever of saving our marriage, then I demand to have sexual rights to screw you from behind. God, Patrick, are you insane? She asked, backing away from me. Too bad, I said, feigning disappointment. And to think that I thought you were actually serious about saving our marriage. I am serious, Patrick. I want you to make love to me, not perform some degrading act from a bad adult movie. You said a little bit ago that you were going to give yourself to me, that you would do anything to make my fantasies come true. And one of my fantasies has always been for you, to let me have you from behind. I was actually enjoying seeing her squirm, wondering how far she would take it. I don't know, Patrick. I mean, why can't we just make love? Because I am testing your resolve, Clarissa. I want to see whether you are really as committed to saving this marriage as you say you are. So, if I let you do this, then you promise you won't leave me? No, but I promise you that if you don't let me screw you in the bum, that I most definitely will divorce you. That's not much of a choice, Patrick. Seems to me it's a hell of a choice, Clarissa. More than that, it is a defining moment. You either define the moment, or the moment defines you. What is it going to be? Are you going to take a chance on possibly saving your marriage by giving up a bit of humility? Or are you going to give up your marriage by saving your humility? Besides, I hope you remember I promised to make you regret for every action you took. She just stood there, frozen, and contemplating her options. Good night, Clarissa, I finally said after several minutes of silence. Do me a favor and close the door on your way out. All right, she stammered. All right, Patrick, I'll do what you want me to do. I'll let you have what you want. Just promise me that you won't hurt me. Damn, I thought. She actually caved. This might be more fun than I thought. I'll only promise you that I won't intentionally hurt you, I lied. I followed her from the guest room and back into the master bedroom that I hadn't slept in for nearly a year now. Clarissa stood near the foot of the bed, and I pulled the straps of the nightgown over the edges of her shoulders, and the gown floated to the floor, leaving her standing there nude. There was only the light of a single reading lamp to illuminate the room and gave everything a soft glow. I had to admit that standing naked in front of me, Clarissa, was the vision of a very beautiful woman who was in terrific shape still, even after 2 kids. Her hips were still very toned, no doubt from her biking and hiking along the various trails around Red River Falls. "What do you want me to do?" she whispered. "On the bed, on all fours. It will be the easiest and most comfortable for you, I think." She obliged and went on all fours. Everything I thought I wanted I literally had right in front of me. This was my moment. And then, just like that, it happened. There was nothing to even remind me. The thought just popped into my head out of nowhere. Shannon. All of a sudden the rage disappeared. Everything I thought I wanted to do to Clarissa disappeared. The overwhelming desire to reciprocate every evil done to me had vanished. A wave of calm and serenity washed over me, and I slowly backed away. Clarissa had apparently expected the worst, thinking I was only pulling out so that I could brutally ravage her in the most savage manner possible. Instead, I got off the bed, reached down and grabbed my boxer shorts. I knew that if I brutalized Clarissa this way that I was absolutely no better than her. She and Bud had gone out of their way to hurt me and humiliate me in every way possible for over 2 years during their affair. If there was one thing that I could take away from all of this, it was in knowing that I had kept my promise to never intentionally hurt her in any way, even after all the lies and the endless amounts of cheating. Clarissa rolled over and sat on the bed, wiping the tears from her eyes. "What's wrong? Why did you stop? I thought this was what you wanted." "I did too," I said. "But what I want more than anything else is to be able to look my boys in the eyes and say that I never did anything to intentionally hurt their mother. If I do this, I won't be able to say that, ever. I am sorry, Clarissa, for everything. I know you probably wanted to make this work and make this all go away. But until you're genuinely sorry, it just isn't going to happen. And the only thing you're ever going to be sorry for is getting caught and having what you wanted most taken from your grasp. You don't want me. I'm not even sure you wanted Bud. What I think you wanted most was some kind of status. And I need more than that. After everything I've been through over the last few years, I deserve that." And with that, I turned and walked back down the hallway to the guest room and closed and locked the door behind me. I could hear Clarissa break down into uncontrollable sobbing. "I'm sorry," she wailed. "I'm so sorry." It went on for more than an hour before she finally sobbed herself to sleep. "So help you God?" "So help me God," I replied, enthusiastically shaking Judge Chester Prohaski's hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege to present to you the new Sheriff of Mason County, Sheriff Sean Patrick Quinn, Jr." And with that announcement, the room burst into applause. The master of ceremonies for my swearing-in ceremony was Jude Palmer, one of the 5 Mason County supervisors. At this time, I would like to invite our new sheriff to come to the podium. Sheriff Quinn has a few words he would like to share with us. Again, the room burst into applause. There were nearly 300 people packed into the all-purpose room, which was a ridiculous crowd for a swearing-in ceremony. As I took to the podium, I scanned the room and waved to my boys who were standing with my sister Beth and her family to my right. I cast a wink and a smile to Shannon and Bridget who were standing near the back with Jack and Suzanne. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "as my first official act as Sheriff of Mason County, I would like to officially recognize my predecessor, retiring Sheriff William Bud Roberts, for his 32 years of service in law enforcement to the community of Red River Falls and as Mason County Sheriff." Again, the perfunctory applause came from the guests, which included every member of the Sheriff's Department. "Bud, would you please join me up here for a moment?" Bewildered, Bud made his way to the podium and I held up a large item. In recognition of Bud's terms as sheriff, we would like to present him with a token of appreciation on behalf of the men and women of the Mason County Sheriff's Department. "Bud, I would like to present this beautiful custom hardwood shadow box to you containing an American flag, the seal of Mason County, a Mason County Sheriff's badge, your old Red River Falls Police Department Lieutenant badge, and a small plaque highlighting your many years of dedicated service. On behalf of all of us here and on behalf of the people of Red River Falls and Mason County, I want to thank you for your outstanding service." I reached forth and shook Bud's hand, giving him the shadow box. I could see that Bud was genuinely moved and surprised by the gift. In truth, I paid for the gift myself, even though I said it was from the department. I figured it was a little token to help soothe his feathers a bit and may go a ways towards keeping the peace in the future. Wow, Patrick. I'm really touched. I don't really know what to say. Thank you very much. It is beautiful. One more round of applause for our outgoing sheriff. I entreated, and the room filled with clapping once again. I also want to invite everyone downstairs afterwards to our large classroom where there will be cake, punch, and coffee served for a retirement reception in Bud's honor. Again, the gesture took Bud by surprise, and he seemed genuinely moved. Before I let everyone go enjoy the cake and refreshments, I do have a small amount of business to take care of and wanted to make a few announcements that you will all find of interest. Once Bud had accepted his fate and made his endorsement of me, he literally became an absentee sheriff. We hardly ever saw him, and he spent most of his time away at conferences or anything else he could do to get out of the office, as well as burn up a considerable amount of bogus comp time, vacation, and sick leave. All of it was good for me, as everyone eventually came to seeing me as the leader of the department anyway. I doubt I could have gotten away with murder, but I could have made it damned hard to catch me. There were a few more retirements during the summer, but Bud was gone so much and had failed to make the necessary appointments and promotions. Going from deputy to sergeant and/or lieutenants were both promotions that will allow the person to remain a part of the union and were appointments I could make without much hassle. Appointing a captain and chief deputy, however, was a different story. The Citizen Advisory Board had done the interviews and candidate screening for years and was an institution in Mason County and Red River Falls when it came to major hirings in the city and county. But according to county and state policy, the use of a Citizen Advisory Board for the promotion of chief deputy and captain was only a customary procedure or recommendation and had been for years. A little research on my part revealed that it was not, in fact, a requirement of the county or state, and was ultimately the discretion of the sheriff. As many of you know, we have had a number of personnel in our department who have chosen to move on to much-deserved retirements over the past few months. We recently underwent some changes in how we manage our combined property and evidence room. Jeff McCauley recently elected to leave that position and take a position as food service supervisor for the Mason County Department of Corrections. With the recent retirement of Bert Fielding, our head jailer for the MCDOC, I have made the decision to combine the position of property and evidence supervisor with that of the head jailer's position. That combined position will now be a lieutenant's position within the Mason County Sheriff's Department, and I have allocated some discretionary funds to perform the necessary renovations that will create a larger office space to accommodate that position. And so my first appointment as Sheriff of Mason County will be to appoint Deputy Amy Van Deeken to that position. Once again, the room broke out into applause as Amy came forward to shake my hand. She was absolutely beaming from ear to ear. I had no doubt she would perform the duties flawlessly. As an added benefit, by the way, combining the two positions will save the taxpayers of Mason County over $30,000 annually. Again, more applause. Next, our department currently has 2 sergeant's positions open, one on the day shift that was vacated by the retirement of Chuck Waterston, and one on the evening shift that was vacated by Erland Barrington. As such, it is my pleasure to announce the promotion of Deputy Danny Larson to the day shift sergeant's position and the promotion of Angel Ryerson to the sergeant's position on the evening shift. As the room broke out in another round of applause, both Danny and Angel stepped forward to shake my hand. My next appointment is an extremely important one. With the transition in full swing here, I felt it was imperative to move quickly on selecting a replacement for my previous position as Chief Deputy and Captain. The decision was not made lightly, and I pored over the many previous applications that were submitted at the time I was selected. As it has been less than 18 months since the applications were sent in, they were all still valid by county and state standards. Every single one of them came from outstanding individuals, and we would be well served to work with any of them. But in the end, one person stood out head and shoulders above the rest. He is someone I have come to know and trust, and someone who is well-liked, respected, and trusted by every member of this department. And so, without further delay, I am proud to announce that I have selected Lieutenant Benito Ben Villanueva to fill the position of Captain and Chief Deputy for the Mason County Sheriff's Department. The room broke out into vigorous applause yet again as Ben came forward, and the look of surprise on his wife's face and that of his children was awesome. Ben and I shook hands warmly. I'm counting on you to be my right hand, Ben. I won't let you down, Sheriff. I promise. The look in our eyes told the other that we had each other's undying trust and loyalty. I wouldn't be sharing with anyone that Ben never actually applied for the position the last time, but somehow miraculously came to have an application on file now. But I figured Tanya would be more than willing to help me out with that if anyone tried to make it a problem for me. As the applause died down, I turned back toward the microphone. And finally, with the appointment of Ben Villanueva to Captain and Chief Deputy, his former position as day shift lieutenant and supervisor is now vacated. The person I have chosen for the lieutenant's position is someone with over 12 years of service and experience with our department and holds 2 bachelor's degrees from North Dakota State University in criminology and psychology, as well as having completed a 6-month residence course at the Federal Law Enforcement Academy at Brunswick, Georgia, with an emphasis on criminal and forensic investigation. And so, it is my pleasure to appoint Deputy Christopher Hayes to the position of day shift lieutenant and supervisor. Chris, come on up here. Once again, the room broke out into applause as Chris came forward and shook my hand. Jesus, he said, I believe you now when you say you return favors. I wasn't expecting this. Well, deserved, I said as the applause continued. Check your department mailbox, too. There's an envelope in there for you and Tanya with a couple of plane tickets to Vegas. I traded in all of my frequent flyer miles and got a pair of unrestricted tickets. There's also a voucher in there for 3 nights of a comped room at the Bellagio. Take that girl of yours down there for a few days and bring her back an honest woman. You hear? Chris chuckled. I'll do that, Sheriff. I'll definitely do that. Chris returned to his seat near the back of the hall. I want to thank you all for coming today and for bearing with me a little while to take care of some early business. It is an honor for me to have the opportunity to serve as your sheriff, and I ask for all of your thoughts and prayers as I attempt to lead this department in a manner that is befitting of the men and women who protect our citizens and in a manner that the citizens of this county deserve. Take care, God bless you all, and may God bless and protect our fine men and women of the Mason County Sheriff's Department. And with those words, the room broke out into applause for the final time. Jude Palmer took the microphone for one final time and dismissed the assembled guests. They quickly dispersed and headed downstairs for Bud Roberts' retirement reception. Before he could get away, I called Chris Hayes back towards the podium. Hey, Chris, got a second? Sure thing, Sheriff. What do you need? One of my last acts as Chief Deputy was to prepare a final notice to be served. And one of your duties as Lieutenant now is to serve those notices and warrants when necessary. And so, as your first official act as a lieutenant on the Mason County Sheriff's Department, I am assigning you to officially serve this notice. Think you can handle that? Chris took a moment to open the manila envelope and briefly gazed at the title page of the notice. Petition for divorce. Sean Patrick Quinn, Jr., Plaintiff, versus Clarissa Marie Quinn, Defendant. Chris broke out into a huge smile. I think I can handle that, Sheriff. Consider it done. Attaboy, I said, patting him on the back. And with that, Lieutenant Christopher Hayes took the first steps towards my impending divorce. I headed downstairs towards the reception for Bud Roberts, shaking hands with attendees, deputies, and well-wishers along the way. I wouldn't see Shannon and her family again until tonight, when I would meet them out at the ranch for a private celebration, followed by what I hoped would be some more celebrating at Shannon's later that night. It was my intent to show up for dinner tonight as her lover and leave there as her fiancé. My right hand reached in my pocket and made sure that the small ring box was still there. As I entered the reception room for Bud's retirement party, he glanced over at me and our eyes locked with one another. My own eyes narrowed and I had a smirk on my face, which did little to hide my obvious contempt for the man. Bud knew it too, and gave me a sheepish wave, a smile and nod of his head. That's right, you son of a bitch. Get used to it. There's a new sheriff in town. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.